In a country where winter temperatures drop below -20, homelessness can be deadly.
Dangerous, very dangerous.
Lena bought her first skateboard at 63 and has been a regular at Helsinki's skate parks ever since.
Wow.
What surprised me that when I began to skateboard, let me say 4 years ago,
Okay.
those kids, they didn't laugh at me, they just looked at me and, oh wow, how old are you? You are very welcome, may we teach you?
Wow.
That's heaven when I am skating with people of different ages, because then we don't have any barriers at all. We are the same tribe.
This is awesome. This is so awesome.
Ihan tailille. Kai sä näytät sä?
Lena now runs skate classes for both young and old.
Wow.
She believes that mixing it with skaters not only improves her sisu, but shows off another of Finland's best traits.
In Finland we trust, it is true. Yeah. We trust each other. For example, when I have forgotten my backpack in the skate park, nobody didn't take it. When I trust in somebody or in something, then it is also the
It's a
freedom
good way of being.
to be yourself.
Lena is more than happy to grow old in Finland.
Ooh.
But the cost of happiness is worrying Finland's leaders. Finland
cost of
has
happiness?
one of Europe's most rapidly ageing populations. By 2070, it's estimated that 1 in 3 Finns will be over 65. With its generous pension scheme and life expectancy sitting at 82, looking after the elderly is about to be a big problem.
We have some base level problems here in Finland, and one of them is that we are getting old quite fast here in Finland.
You're living long and healthy
For
lives.
Government
That's a
MP
problem.
Annika Sarako, the elderly are only one part of the ageing crisis.
Also, the birth rate is very low nowadays. We need more children here in Finland.
Rapid urbanisation and increasing education levels are thought to have caused births to drop by 23% in the last decade.
Right.
The government had plans to address the coming crisis.
How?
Then,
You can't just like turn around and say, guys, we need you to have more babies. How do you, that's hard. How do you address a growing problem with age and an aging population? How do you address that? The only way you could address that really is to make Finland attractive to young people from other countries, because I don't know how you'd get the country to start having more babies.
and all attention
I
diverted
don't know how
to
they,
the
they would do
pandemic.
that.
Who could even imagine how much our life is going to change when this pandemic
It's
came?
horrible.
I'm very grateful to the Finns because the restrictions, which hasn't been easy to live with them, they decided to live in a good way, and restrictions have been working.
Finland has the lowest infection rates in all of Europe. It locked down quickly, maintained tough restrictions, and has fully vaccinated 30% of the population. Annika chalks up Finland's success to one key thing.
Finnish people, they are trusting to the governments. It's a great asset which we have, and
Okay.
it has helped us a lot while we have had this global crisis.
A recent survey revealed that 9 in 10 Finns fully supported the government's COVID efforts. Finland trusts its government more than most OECD countries. According to researchers, that has a big impact on well-being.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because there was a lack of trust in, like, say, America with the government and the vaccination, and they had a big problem with vaccinating their population. Like, a lot of people just flat out refused. In the UK, it was like a medium. People refused. There were people that were really for it and really trusted the government. There were people that refused. I worked in a hospital during the pandemic. That was my job. It was a tough time, a very, very tough time. Yeah, quite traumatizing actually, because I worked on the COVID wards. And yeah, we were panicking because people weren't getting vaccinated and we really needed that to happen. And there were some of the staff members, some of the nurses, some of the doctors refused to get vaccinated as well. And a lot of people lost their jobs because the UK basically said if you don't get vaccinated, you won't be able to work in the NHS. So there were a lot of nurses and doctors that actually voluntarily quit the NHS. So it's a lot easier if your people are a lot more trusting of the government because you don't have issues like that. And we lost NHS staff during a time when we needed hospital staff during a pandemic. And I'm guessing you guys didn't have that problem being so trusting with your government. So that's a really good thing. It's a really good thing.
Trust has been shown to be one of the factors that explains quite much national happiness levels. In Finland, governmental institutions are like well functioning and they are able to deliver what they are promising to deliver, which means that people have this feeling that the government is taking care of them. People are not so afraid of various, downturns in life.
With COVID coming under control, where will the trusted government go from here?
The aging is one of the biggest problems which we have. That's our problem which we have solved together. We are a welfare society. It is important that every citizen thinks that my life is important and the politicians are also, they want to take care of me too, so that they can trust to the future.
So how are you going to...
But in the happiest country on earth, there are now a growing number of Finns the government isn't taking care of.
Oh, really?
As dusk falls on Helsinki, two men are trying to find them. According to the UN's World Happiness Report, Finland has been the happiest country on earth 4 years running. But it's no utopia, and tonight these men are searching for Finns who've fallen through the cracks.
Right, okay.
These
So you do have
Tumos
homeless?
work with No Fixed Abode, a charity providing first aid, food and support to those sleeping rough in Helsinki. Locals have reported seeing a group of young people sleeping in this park in below freezing conditions. In a country where winter temperatures drop below -20, homelessness can be deadly.
Dangerous, very dangerous. It has to be drugs, right? It has to be drugs, mental health issues, because if you have such a great welfare state and your government looks after people that need housing and need shelter and food and all that type of stuff, if it's that great and people are still homeless, it has to do with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, mental health, domestic violence, all sorts of things that would make you scared to be in the system. To make, like, I don't know, there's a reason why people are still homeless other than just not having a home to live in.
There are signs people have stayed here, but they've moved on. Visa and Tumos will spend the rest of the night looking for other rough sleepers. On an average evening, they'll find dozens across Helsinki needing emergency help. Despite Finland's famed welfare system, in the last decade, homelessness has been rising in one key group. Young people under 30.
Young people under 30.
Meillä on täällä tällä hetkellä on 20 paikkaa, joista suurimpana osana öistä ollaan ihan täynnä.
Robin is a youth leader at Nuoli House, a shelter for under 30s.
Meillä on heille tarjota täällä näin ruokaa ja apua ja keskustelukavereita ja vertaistukea.
The shelter is run on private donations and receives state aid. Even before COVID, Nuoli was under increasing stress.
Meillä tulee tällä hetkellä Nuoleen tosi paljon uusia asunnottomia nuoria. Meillä tulee nuoria muista kunnista, missä ei ole minkäännäköisiä palveluita nuorille asunnottomille. Eli kyllä, asunnottomien nuorten määrä on kasvussa.
Why?
Lähestulkoon kaikilla nuorilla katuasunnottomilla on
That's what I thought.
päihteiden käyttö. Päihteiden käyttö, joka on alkanut jo tosi nuorena. Päihdehoitoa tarjolla kaikille sitä tarvitseville.
Substance abuse disorders affect 4% of the Finnish population, nearly double the rate of the rest of the EU.
Wow.
Addiction is a key factor in youth homelessness and affects many of Nuoli's residents who declined to be filmed. At no fixed abodes nearby drop-in centre, 34-year-old former resident Jussi was happy to share his story.
4 vuotta on nyt suunnilleen ollut asunnottomana ja tulin tosiaan kuntoutukseen tänne pääkaupunkiseudulle ja jäin niin kuin kadulle sitten
After Jussi aged out of the youth shelter, this place saved his life.
Ei ollut muutakaan paikkaa. Niin. Talvella varsinkaan, niin ei jos ilman näitä palveluita, niin ei täällä pärjäisi kukaan.
But over the last decade, government spending on shelters and substance abuse programs has been slashed.
Okay.
Funding priority has gone to the Accommodation First initiative, a scheme to provide social housing units to all vulnerable Finns by 2032. But with youth homelessness rising, Finland may need to refinance emergency shelters and other social support programs.
It's important to realize that we can't lose anybody. They need education, they need workplaces, they need hope, which helps to survive. And that's why we want to put more effort to the mental health services, because we think that youth, they really need them now.
That's really, really sad that young people are getting into substance abuse like really early and it's causing homelessness, because that, yeah, I kind of relate to that in a sense. I don't know if I want to share that, but like, I get that that's a problem, and there's always a root to a problem. I mean, just providing housing and homeless shelters is probably not enough. We need to get to the root cause of the substance abuse. Where are the drug dealers? Where are they getting the drugs from? Why are they taking these drugs? Most of the time when kids take drugs, it's boredom. It's like, I've got nothing to do, my friends are doing it, it's cool to do it, I'm going to take it as well. So we need to preoccupy these young minds, get them into youth centres, get them into sports, get them into things that will stop them from being on the streets, to stop them from doing things to fill their time. And I can understand why during COVID, the levels and the numbers of people that have been taking drugs, young people that have been taking drugs, has gone up, because there's less things to do, there's more boredom, kids will be kids, and kids will just be like, oh, well, I ain't got nothing to do, everything's locked down, everything's shut, I'm gonna take some drugs. That's what it is. That's why it's risen during COVID.
Until there's substantial change, many homeless must rely on non-government services and sisu to help them survive.
Kyllä mä sillä lailla ajattelen, että tämmönen elämäntyyli, niin kuin, tai mitä tämä mun elämä nyt on viime vuodet ollut, niin ei tämä niin kovin monessa paikkaa ensinnäkään olisi mahdollista. Niin kuin, että tavallaan joo, kyllä mä ajattelen, että on siitä niin onnellinen, että Suomessa on ja asun.
Absolutely.
Niin, hengitön olisin, jos olisin jossain niin.
That's the reality. He's right. If he lived in America, if he was a young kid in America, that's a scary place for anyone who's vulnerable. It's scary because the government doesn't care. The government does not care at all. It's every man for themselves there.
In spite of issues like homelessness, Finland remains at the top of the World Happiness Chart. But is being number one actually hurting Finland? While expat mum Melissa visits the in-laws, there's growing concern that the expectation to be happy is making people anxious.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's really difficult because my culture is to complain and I guess not so much complain, but you know, say things like they are, and I find that Finnish people don't tend to complain so much or rock the boat or upset the status quo. Milo, do you want to
Okay.
So that was really difficult at times for me because I felt like I was being ungrateful and not fitting in.
Some mental health advocates feel the happiness report pressures unhappy citizens to hide their distress, preventing many from seeking professional help. But others argue Finns hiding their feelings is nothing new.
So in Finland there's this saying, the one who has happiness should hide it. So kind of like that's part of the Finnish culture that, you know, people don't want to stick out and don't want to display their wealth or their happiness to other people.
Okay.
In this modern world where we are all the time comparing each other, like through social media, the less you display your happiest moments, it's better for the social comparison, and in that sense might be also good for people's happiness in the long run.
Whether it's good or bad for Finland to be the world's happiest country, the rest of us can look to Finns for clues on how to live a more satisfying life.
This society, we have built it for everybody. And if somebody feels that this is not for me, that's our biggest problem.
We can learn from the uniquely Finnish concept of sisu, which celebrates resilience and grit.
Sisu.
So it's not about jumping with joy or smiling and laughing, but it's more about, you know, you think that, well, after all, everything is quite good.
Ansa!
And we
She's
can
awesome.
strive to be more accepting and be stoked to be alive.
When we were selected to be most happiest country in the world, then I thought, oh, that's bullshit. But now I agree, we are happy country.
We need to be more like her. She's taking life, obviously, by both hands and being like, I'm old, but I'm not going to let this stop me from having fun and enjoying my life and doing what young people do. That was very interesting. That was a very good report because it wasn't just all about Finland being a happy place, but actually breaking down why Finland has won or been selected as being the happiest country in the world, and what that really means and what the issues really are in Finland, like homelessness of young people, and the, you know, your culture of being positive or accepting what you have and not complaining too much. That's really interesting. I can't wait to go to Finland and kind of get a feel for how that is there. When I was looking at when they were going through parts of Finland, it looks a bit like the UK actually, which is quite interesting. Guys, thank you very much for watching part 2. If you're still here in part 2, thank you very much. Until the next one, I will see you guys very soon.